Bird, 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 bird. Yeah! Ron Babe was right. Ron Babe was right.
I'm feeling spry. First, a little personal thanks to Brandon at Salem Autosports for my wonderful, wonderful pickup truck. And I'm saying this ahead of time, Brandon, before the episode starts. I did not cover this truck up in Kansas gumbo. It was parked at the farmhouse all week. Not that a truck from Salem Autosports would let you down, but I'm telling you what, I feel sorry for poor Justin's truck. And your truck, my truck, from Salem Autosports is as good, shiny, and clean as ever. Very little gumbo on it. Okay, so sue me. Another podcast did not come out on Sunday night. I tried. Here's what happened. We're going to do another podcast. Actually, got a few question and answers for Justin, or a few questions for a question and answer session with Justin, which you're going to listen to here shortly. But last Friday was the last day of our trip in Kansas. And, well, if you've ever hunted in Kansas and you've ever been out there when there's a snow melt or a rain, and I have never been. I've been there a couple times, had nice, dry, sunny, beautiful winter weather. Best place in the world to go to normally in January. Not this year. In fact, Justin kind of gave me a hint. He said, like, hey, if you don't, I wouldn't come out here based on the weather, but if you're coming, great. The last day, besides the fact that we were running around on roads that were kind of like wet concrete, like if somebody poured a 4-inch deep driveway and you decided, while it was just wet right out of the truck, and then you decided to drive your truck through it and try to get traction, that's how the north and south roads were. The east and west roads, which it's hard to believe, the east and west roads are made out of a different material, and it is nothing but gumbo. And we got soundly stuck on the side of the road on Friday. Didn't ruin the day, but it ruined the last part of the day, and we faced the fact that we might be sitting in that truck. Thank God we had a half a tank of gas. We might be sitting in that truck till the ground froze up at 2 or 3 in the morning, and that was even questionable if we'd get out on this road. Anyway, that's the long story why this episode didn't come out. I actually had to run over to Justin's on today, Tuesday, and we were kind of cramped for time, so we didn't talk a lot about it. But anyway, it was a great time. I learned a lot. I saw a lot. I met Tyler Webster out there from B3. I met Brent Kroll, which is a NAVDA friend of mine from Muskegon. Well, he lives up in Traverse now. Brent was out there hunting. Tyler met him on the way up. They couldn't find a place to stay. They stayed at Justin's for the weekend. They did better on birds than I did, but they got better bird dogs than I do, and they shoot better than I do. Anyway, so here is the episode. But we first have to thank all my Patreon patrons. In fact, there's about a half a dozen of you that I owe a quick message to thank you for joining, and I always send everybody a quick thanks for joining. Let me know if you need anything. And people take me up on it. I talk to a lot of my Patreon patrons on the phone, and I love doing it because I'm in the car 90% of my life. So, thank you to all Patreon patrons. Thank you to Pike Gear, my title sponsor, technical clothing for the upland hunter. The new stuff is coming out. In fact, Pike will be at Pheasant Fest with us with their booth. Have some of their new gear, some of their gear from last year. Brent's going to be there. It's going to be cool. Purina, of course, will be there, but they won't be in my booth. They won't be in the Hunting Dog Podcast Village at Pheasant Fest, but they'll be there in full regalia. The biggest booth, the biggest booth for the best dog food in the world. You know that. CZ USA will be there, and I'm going to try to get Dave to come over and do a quick podcast while we're there. Or some of the CZ people that I met in Kansas. Cannot wait. Cannot wait to see that whole thing. This is going to be, Pheasant Fest is going to be a gas. I'm telling you. Boy, if you can make it, please try to make it. Jack from Gumleaf USA is going to be there. and he's going to actually bring Stephen Faust up there. Stephen is a fellow that's been using his boots for years. He's a grouse guide. He guides at Pine Ridge Grouse Camp in Minnesota, and then he guides down in North Carolina and in the Virginias for grouse in the wintertime. And he could speak volumes of these boots. He's probably got more miles in these boots than anybody in this country. So Stephen's going to come up there and help jacket the gumleaf boot. Adam's going to be there from Backridge Ammunition, and he's bringing, I think it's Kelly Haydell from the Kelly Haydell from Haydell Calls. Does a lot of duck hunting with him. Big proponent of Backridge Ammunition, so he's going to be there. Gunnar Kennel's going to be there. And I'm not sure who's coming from Gunnar, if it's going to be Addison and his wife or Macy and Addison's wife. And Addison, you ought to come with, though. You know, we had a good time last time we were there. But either way, Gunnar's going to be there. Wilderness Athlete is not going to be there per se, but I'm going to have some samples there, as they're our newest sponsor. And don't forget, on your first order this month, you can save 25% on Wilderness Athlete products. One time only. Onyx Hunt, they're going to be there. They sponsor everything. In fact, I think they're one of the bigger sponsors at Pheasant Fest. So Onyx Hunt Map Systems, you've heard me talk all about it, so I'm just blending this all into a giant Pheasant Fest, Fun Fest, Beer Fest, Dog Fest. Fest. Is that even a word? Anyway, so come out and see us at the Hunting Dog Podcast Village. We're going to be kitty corner from the public land stage. I'm going to be up there with Nick Larson from Project Upland podcast and Ben Jones, the CEO of Rough Grouse Society, and myself. We're going to be doing a little Q&A on Friday. I can't remember the time. And on Saturday. And I think that's like 2 o'clock. But it's not going to be hard for them to find me because I'll be like kitty corner from them. So we're going to be up there talking about a little rough grouse public hunting, doing a little question and answer period there. I'm telling you what, if there was ever a year you didn't want to miss Pheasant Fest, I know I didn't see a lot of you in Chicago last year, and I think some of you just said, I ain't going to Chicago. And I know I got a lot of Chicago listeners, a lot of Illinois, Wisconsin listeners. Some people just like, I ain't going nowhere near the Turnpike. I'm not going nowhere near Interstate 90. Maybe that's what held it off, because I thought that was going to be big. This one is going to be the biggest one ever in Minneapolis. Look it up. There's all kinds of ways. You can go through NAVDA. You can go through websites. You can, and the tickets aren't expensive. You know what's expensive is running around because you're going to start buying all this stuff. But, yeah, all my sponsors are going to be there. Backridge, CZ USA, Gumleaf Boots, Purina, Pike Gear, Gunnar Kennels, Wilderness Athlete, Onyx Hunt Map Systems. They're all going to be there. And 3/4 of them are going to be under one umbrella over there. Kitty corner from the public land stage. Cannot wait to see you there. Now, here's the episode with Justin. Like I said, I'm going to go back and talk to Justin probably Wednesday or Thursday, depending on his schedule. We want to talk a little bit about hunting in Kansas and things I saw him doing with his dogs and his clients' dogs. That man works way too hard. You bring 11 dogs out, and when there's rain days or windy days or days you just can't get down the road, you got to take them dogs out of that truck 3 times a day. Slog them out, slog them up, chain them up on a chain gang, take them out, clean up the poop. I don't know if we'll talk all about that, but I'm just telling you, I was not envious. I'm envious of somebody who can go somewhere for 3 weeks and work with their dogs, but that's just a lot of work. So anyway, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Justin McGrail, Black Creek Dog Training Center. You're going to be hearing a lot more of me and Justin this year. We're going to be doing a lot more of these. We've got some. We got a lot of. That's me always. That's always me on that my lip of mine. Anyway, that's what I didn't fart. Honestly, no. Honest to God, I didn't. You'd know it if I did. So there you go. Enjoy. Love you. Girls love you. Guys love you. Girls more. Bye. Hey, everybody. It's Ron Bain with the Hunting Dog Podcast. I am not in Kansas doing the question and answer program with Justin, but I am at Black Creek Dog Training Center with Justin This is post Kansas.
I'll take full responsibility for that.
In fact, you'll love this, Justin. I talked to Rich from CZ because he was 70 miles south of us. Mm-hmm. And the first thing I said, why didn't somebody warn me about these roads? He goes, you didn't go on an east-west road, did you? So he said.
We were just trying to get the truck out of the way.
Out of the way. We didn't really want to go down an east-west road. No. And as it turned out, we couldn't go down an east-west road.
No.
That was.
And I know better. It was slightly a rookie move, but the sun and the crown of the road conspired against us. And it was my bright idea to wait until the very end of the trip, thinking surely there will be things that happen as we're out there running these dogs and hunting that we can talk about.
Right,
and
right.
As it turned out, the last
There's
night
stuff
of the
to
trip,
talk about.
we were a little delayed.
Right. And then you heroically said, come on, we can do it. I felt so good to sit down after the thought of possibly spending the night in the truck. Because for people who don't know where we were, well, we can't tell you where we were, but we were in Kansas. Mm-hmm. And it's not like a really highly populated area. You know, there's ranches, and ranches are big, and farmhouses are few and far between. And at one point, Justin said, well, I'm going to start walking to town.
My first 3 calls went unanswered.
Right.
And I left messages. And that's when I started walking.
When you pulled out your little notebook of all your ranch buddies, I said, oh, see, he's a Boy Scout. He's got this covered. Someone will be here in 15 minutes.
And the reason was it was Friday. I later learned, of course,
the boys were playing pinochle.
The boys were playing pinochle at the grain elevator.
Yeah.
And eventually,
if
through a series
sound like
of
Kansas.
texts and phone calls, we interrupted the card game, and here came the cavalry.
The cavalry came with about a 50-year-old versatile tractor, and that little tractor had some ass to it.
I was impressed.
He took that 11,000-pound Schwann's ice cream truck of yours and just nosed it all the way through the grease and the mud and pulled you out to the intersection. And I made a mistake of not. I should have filmed the pulling out part.
Yeah.
I'm mad I didn't do it. Anyway, so we had a lot less time on our hands at the end of the trip than we thought we would. So anyway, here we go. I'll tell everybody about all my bird misses and my cigarette misses and stuff unless we have time. We'll go into that. But actually, this is for you, Nick Larson, who sent me just in a nick of time why he doesn't listen to the show in regular. He knew we were supposed to do this last week. And he says, do I still have time for a Justin question? But I'm throwing you up in front because you're a fellow podcaster, Nick, and sorry everybody else. Says, thanks for having Justin on again. These are my favorite episodes. I'm not going to go into your compliment. Okay. What factors influence the way Justin approaches a dog on point while in the rough grouse woods? For example, let's say Justin is hunting alone with one dog on the ground. The dog goes on point. What happens next? Will he approach the point in a systematic way? For example, trying to circle ahead or cut off a bird? Or might he let the cover and the body dictate his approach? How does he read the cover, the dog, the wind, and all those factors to get in position for a shot on a rough grouse, which I can honestly say I don't put a lot of thought to.
Well, you should. Approaching a point can make or break your opportunity to pull the trigger.
Yeah.
You can approach point after point after point poorly, and you're going to get a lot less shooting opportunities than if you do it as good as you can. It's not always going to work.
No, the bird's still going to win sometimes.
Yeah, wind is not a factor for any of the birds I hunt, grouse or otherwise. Mm-hmm. I do not even play that in, other than as it relates to where my dog is, and wind direction.
Right.
We know where the bird somewhat is. The number one thing I'm thinking is escape route for a rough grouse. Which way is the likely escape cover? And if you're in a place you never hunted before, you just got to take your best guess. But if a lot of grouse hunters kind of have a lineup of their favorite spots, mm-hmm. and if you hunt the same grouse covers season after season, you'll begin to notice they always tend to go that way when we flush them somewhere and through here. They have predictable escape routes.
Yeah.
And a lot of birds are that way. And regardless of what way you come in, that bird knows where he's going before he gets up.
So you don't think we affect it as much? The birds got a night. We got to outthink the birds.
They don't always. Sometimes they have multiple escape routes. You know what
yeah,
I mean?
yeah,
and
I
if you're
suppose.
coming from this way, he's got plan B
Right.
for us.
You might have been in the way of plan A.
And that's why 2 shooters on rough grouse is always, the guy who causes the flush a lot of times is not the guy who gets the shot.
Right.
But I do a lot by myself, and you get beat a lot when you're by yourself with rough grouse.
So maybe that's why Nick was asking the question. Sounds like he got beat a lot by
I think a common thing, though, is, unless I have no other choice, I never come from behind the dog. Never come from directly behind the dog.
So
that grouse knows that dog is right there, and now
Right.
you're an additional source of approaching danger.
Right.
Yeah, you want to hook out and around in some fashion.
Yeah. So then you are going to think escape route, but you're not going to think escape route by walking up the back ass of the dog.
Never. No.
You're kind of almost hoping to block the one avenue that would give you the other avenue of shooting.
Yeah, and
if possible.
And the other thing I think is hugely important when approaching points, and a big mistake I see a lot, don't slow down and start dawdling. You're just giving that bird more time to figure out how to get out of there. Force him to flight.
I've seen people pitter-patter really slow.
No, that dog isn't pointing a grizzly bear. Get in there. and that's the thing, because you got to put pressure on that bird. Your dog has done his job. He's located a bird for you.
Yep.
And now it's your job to put him in the air. And you got to do that by putting pressure on him. If you get in there close to a point and you start dilly-dallying and dawdling, you're just giving him extra time to figure out how to beat you. And so, a nice steady boom, 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 nice steady walk approach to a point until you hear wings. Don't stop walking. So many people get in front of a dog on point and nothing happens, and they stop.
Okay.
Don't stop until you hear wings.
Yeah.
And if you get to a certain point where, okay, maybe we don't have a bird here.
Right.
Or maybe it's a super tight sitting woodcock. Okay, now you should be well in front of your dog. Work your way back to the dog.
Right. And then he said, if you have time for 2, I think this is a good one because it's not in any of our questions. I'd also like Justin's thought on pointing dogs relocating birds. Again, rough grouse in this example. What makes a dog great at relocating and successfully pinning a grouse? Now,
I can tell you what makes them great at it. Genetics and experience.
Yeah.
And you need both.
Yeah.
Some dogs, no matter how much practice they get at it, they're just not very good at it.
Really? Just
And those are dogs that you would be better off that, hey, if you smell them good enough to know they're around, you stay put and you let me really do a thorough flushing
look for the
attempt.
bird.
But the dogs that have the skills, it's okay to let them relocate. When that nose is telling them that grouse is leaving me, let him play chess with him. If he's got the goods in the brains and the nose department, and he's got some bird savvy behind him, because if you always insist that they stay anchored up, you're going to flush in front of a lot of empty points, because these birds do run. All species of birds run, but pressured public land grouse, they'll do a lot of running on you.
Yeah, they're not there all the time.
No. So a dog that can play that game, it's a special dog. And during the learning curve of that, they're all, even the ones that become good at it, during the learning process, they're all going to bump some birds. That's how they learn.
Right.
Yeah, and that's okay.
Yeah. And then he said, most importantly, does he have a preference on how dogs relocate rough grouse? Is there anything he does to influence how a dog learns this tactic? Well, you already said it's
in the genes. Yeah, they're going to do it how their ancestors did it.
And I wonder if he's also asking, like I just hunted with your dogs, and I took shots at birds. Your dogs were steady to wing shot and fall, or wing shot and miss, or wing shot and cigarette, whatever it was. Okay. You always you control the relocation with your dog, and I don't think he really asked that, but
here's where
that comes with practice.
It does, but I allow my dogs to relocate
without you giving them the.
Here's where I draw the line. Once I commit to flushing, you need to stay put.
Okay.
But if I'm still If the dog points and I'm still on my way or letting it play out a little bit, and if you can see them, which you can't most of the time in the grouse woods, sometimes I'll even encourage them. I can tell from their demeanor they don't have them yet.
Right.
You know, they got enough.
That's really
to stop.
knowing your dog.
That's knowing your dog.
Yeah.
And if his nose is telling him they've been here real recently, but they're not here, I don't want him staying there.
Right.
You know, relocate. Right. That's relocating.
So
too.
you're still climbing behind him and getting
Let
there.
him go.
And you watch him putting those little 5-6 steps on or whatever it takes. So, but once you get in front of the dog,
that's it.
Once
no moving. No,
your dogs don't move. And
While I'm flushing, you
don't want the dog in the picture.
You don't move until I'm certain, okay, we've got nothing here.
Nothing here.
Now we need you to relocate.
Right,
yeah.
right. Yeah, I don't think we ever had that question. I liked it.
It's a great question.
Yeah.
Great.
All right, this one. This is not, I'm not going to say a cup of tea, but it's not something you do a lot with. I'm a big fan of the podcast and learned so much that I've applied to my 2-year-old English Springer Spaniel, particularly in the grouse knowledge. See, he just learned something there, except it doesn't work for a flushing dog. You just be at port arms the whole time and be ready. I'm curious about the use of place boards in the flushing breeds. How to start, why should I use them? I hear people talk about them a lot, don't know where to begin. Any idea?
Place boards for pointing dogs and flushing dogs are a tangible, spot. And so with the pointing dogs, people can use them for some early foundation woe training.
Yeah.
And with the flushing breeds, it'll be sit or hup. And then maybe that could be parlayed into some of the early steadiness with pigeons in a real setup type situation. But ultimately, you just got to work through those.
Right.
But they can help a dog grasp a new concept, what's expected of them, because it's ingrained and instilled in them that this is where I do this, whether it's sit, hup, or whoa. And you can use that throughout the dog's, off-season training to teach certain things. And I know people that use them with the flushing dogs to teach like casting almost, right, or left. They've got multiple place boards, and that dog knows getting to that is good.
And you kind of develop in the hand with it sometimes.
You can use them for that. And but eventually you have to move. There's not going to be place boards everywhere you go with your dog, but they can help a dog learn certain tasks.
And you kind of also know the dog, like if you're calling the dog back, if he goes to that place board, he kind of 100% paid attention to you. Because he's not next to you and then behind you, and then he's like, I'm here.
Right.
I imagine you could even probably parlay it into some retrieving drills.
Or go lay down. Teaching a dog to go lay on a dog bed.
Yeah.
Most of these dogs live in the house with their owners, and that's always a good, safe spot and always right.
Yep. And if you come to Pheasant Fest, Cato Outdoors will be there with all their new place boards.
There you
There's
go.
a little shameless plug for my buddy Jordan. All right. Came across you on a meter. My question is, what dog would be best for an upland hunter starting out in Pennsylvania? Since we stock our pheasants, our birds, and we don't need them to range out far, I would like to get a pointing breed, but also one that will retrieve after the shot. The lowest temperature we usually get is around 30. I don't know if that'll affect a short coat or a long coated dog. But we do run into an amount of burrs and, stick tights and stuff like that. And I know you can always shave a coat down, but, most people never shave their coat. I mean, some people do, but most people just deal with cupping them out. So he'd like a lot. I'd like a medium energy as well as a dog that I can leave for 8 hours. But we'll have access to a doggy door and backyard. I think that's any dog.
Any dog.
Any dog.
Sure.
So, I mean, there isn't a dog out there that shouldn't be able to spend 8 hours by themselves.
Right.
I mean, that's normal. Crate training and kennel training. Going on temper from my research, I found that the wire hair pointing Griffons, English setters, and Bracos are the most relaxed breeds, but will still get the job done. If I decide to go with a Braco, what is a reasonable price for a puppy? We just edited that out. It's too much. Actually, these days, I think everybody's starting to spend around $1,500 to $2,000 on a dog. So I would tell them not to be sticker shocked by that.
It depends on the circles,
you're shopping
and the breed that you're shopping.
Yeah. One field trialer to another is not going to spend.
Those guys swap dogs.
Swap
back and
dogs,
forth,
right.
And they look at a lot of dogs. But most people are, if you think about it, I tell people the cost of a puppy, that's just a down payment on this whole deal.
Right.
And so don't let a few $100 sway you one way or the other there. And then he mentioned English setter as one of his 3.
Yeah.
It was?
Yeah.
Okay. Did he say like calm and relaxed?
Yeah. I think he ran into a big old comfy butt
so
setter at some point.
That's why I circled back to that,
Yeah.
because within each breed there's going to be
that dog.
you can't say they're all like this.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. You know what? I'm going to just take the rest of the question because I've told people this before. If you're in Pennsylvania and you really don't have a dog breed you're set on, you're inquiring. I've told people, and you can disagree with me or tell me where I might be wrong, Justin, I would go get to meet a breeder that's in some driving distance to you, get to meet the breeder, and you'll probably end up getting to like the breed.
Sure.
I mean, because you've got a support team. If he's a good breeder, he's going to be there for you. He's going to want to know how his pup's doing. It could be, especially for someone who doesn't have their heart set on something, it could be easier than shipping a wire hair griffin from Minnesota to PA and now have no support system. So,
and it goes back to what I've said on your podcast before. Get a dog from somebody who does what you are going to do.
There you go. So there's your homework. We just gave you homework. All right. I always wonder if this is true. Ron, I'm sending this on behalf of a buddy. Does that mean this never happened to me? Dog. Oh, this guy's he's got this all lined up. Dog, Izzy, 8-year-old German Shorthair, experienced, seasoned in waterfowl and upland. Owner trainer, not a pro, but competent and knowledgeable. Boy, shouldn't have any questions. The owner is a 60-40 waterfowler, uplander, hunter. He got a dog in college, focused heavily on retriever work, less on upland, and she proved early to be a natural in the upland field. Typically, he hunted with just Izzy, no other dogs, and was very productive. Recently, he got another puppy. She is dual purpose and versatile, which Izzy should be too, German Shorthair, earning a prize won in her NA test. The question is regard to the older dog. He did not 100% proof train the whoa, as it was really not necessary, as she had some field whoa experience with a basic understanding, but was never 100% broke. If needed for safety, he could always whistle her or stop her or nick her, as you would for a blind retrieve, to get her to stop, sit, and watch for a hand signal. Backing was not a concern or practice because he never hunted with other dogs. Since getting the new pup, he discovered that the older dog will not back, nor does it listen to whoa. Issue in the retrieving training, obedience is so strong that she tends to default to that in the heat of the moment, with stimulation. I'm kind of lost on that one. The issue is that the retrieve training and obedience is so strong that she tends to default.
Any stim from the collar and the dog's coming to him and not stopping.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
In addition, she's a sensitive dog. Not run back to the truck, soft, but a normal level 1 on a Garmin will also get her head to twitch. And what would be the best approach to collar conditioning, enforceable whoa in the field, and not undo the retrieving training and the bird drive she has? Wow.
And I want to go back to the beginning, make sure I got this right. This dog said 8?
This dog's 8, yeah.
Okay. So I'm a go-with-the-flow kind of trainer. We got an 8-year-old dog. Do you want to spend the rest of this dog's career harping on it?
Yeah.
And I wouldn't. You know,
Right.
hunt them separate. Problem solved.
Yeah.
Really, now, could you teach that dog? Yes, and he could do some off-season work and some backing. He's got to make that dog want to back, not back, or else you're going to get in trouble.
Right.
And I don't know how much time he's given this, because a lot of times it'll happen naturally, but
Yeah.
not right away.
Right.
Dogs that have a lot of point, honoring is just an extension of the pointing instinct.
Right. It's like, oops, something's up.
But some dogs, they just don't like to do it. They're competitive dogs by nature.
Older dog could certainly take that role.
And for its whole life until now, it wasn't part of the game.
Right.
And he also, this is where incomplete whoa training is circling back around to bite him. If it was done right and collar conditioned correctly, he should be able to stop that dog.
Yeah.
And he says when he nicks the dog, it comes to him.
Yeah.
It's defaulting to come when
Yeah.
called. And
Yeah.
that's the collar conditioning
confused,
for whoa.
right?
Right.
Right.
And it's defaulting to something it knows is safe, which is to come to him.
Right.
If the collar conditioning had been done correctly as a young dog, he'd be able to stop that dog
Right.
in that situation. But
Yeah.
do you really want to do that with an 8-year-old to go back? I guess if he doesn't have anything else to do and wants to give it a shot.
A lot of work.
It will be a lot of work, but maybe he's got the time, and
And
that dog may hunt another 4 seasons. We don't know.
Right. And again, I always make the slit across the throat if I say something like, "No, Ron, way wrong." But sometimes if you're trying to do something you're not that good at, you could cause another problem. Sometimes a dog could find another avenue. Like, okay, you're really going to make me do this?
Yeah.
Watch what I do. Because so far you've loved me for 8 years. And now you're asking more out of me.
And what he has to watch for if he does attempt this is, and he alluded to it in the question, diminishing drive. All of a sudden the dog's enthusiasm comes down. This isn't fun because he's being set up to be corrected.
Right.
Well, why would you get excited about setting up to be corrected?
It's like getting
He's
excited
not
about
gonna
doing
do it.
laundry.
Yeah. And, I occasionally get somebody that'll call me with even a 6, 7, sometimes 8-year-old dog about something. I say, no, I don't want to take that on. I'm not going to do that to that dog. Just work with an 8-year-old dog at that point. And if it's, I'm curious, is the dog just going in front of it and pointing, or and maybe that's how they can hunt together.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, you said he's not.
He might just hog the point.
Right.
Which is still pointing.
If he
but
still gets it,
but
if
if there's not enough room between the puppy and the bird, he comes in the front,
sooner or later.
then it's going to cause a problem. All right. This one, I don't know if we can even answer this one. I love the show. Just started recently listening. Gone back as far as I can. I'm from Illinois. Have done preserve hunts and state-released birds. Well, that's where I started, state-released birds in Illinois. For a little over 10 years and love it. I'm looking at getting my first bird dog, preferably a pointer sometime. Now, when he says a pointer, I'm assuming he means English pointer.
Or
he could mean a pointing breed, but
yeah, some guys new to it use
call
that
it
term for any pointing dog.
Yeah. In the next few years, either once my current dog passes or I get a bigger house. What is the best way to locate breeders in my area so I can start to look at what is available? I am lost on finding the breeders. I've hunted behind American Brittany's and GSPs and like both. Boy, I mean, I would have to say, Google's your friend there. Just
in today's world,
yeah.
I'm sure there's a couple bird dog publications, magazines. There's probably still a few people that advertise in those, but everything really has gone to the computer land.
Yeah, the best way to locate a breeder. I mean,
well, he mentioned he's hunted behind short hairs and Brittany's that he really liked.
Yes.
Ask those guys, where'd you get your dogs?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really not. I know sometimes people, it's almost like going to buy a car. You kind of like, oh, God, I got to go buy the new car. I got to see if I want the undercoating. Some people kind of, it sounds like he's just dreading the process. Only thing I would add to it is like, you may have to, don't think it's going to be in your backyard all the time.
No, it probably isn't.
Yeah, it doesn't mean it can't be.
Right.
But prepare yourself for like doing the research, draw yourself a circle on a map and say, I'm willing to spend a weekend meeting different breeders and get a hold of them. That's all I could say.
It's not a trip you have to make once a month.
No, you just have to go and meet them. In fact, if you're sharp, you could take a Friday off and probably hit 3 or 4 places.
And don't let geography be your deciding factor.
Yeah. All right. Huge fan here from San Diego. Love your podcast. Love your dogs. I have a question for you. Have you ever done a podcast or episode on puppies and introductions to birds? I mean, I think we've covered it a little bit sometime, but I never did an episode on. Well, I did do a puppy episode with Al Harmeyer, Puppy 101. They could look that up. That's in the archives. I don't think I've ever concentrated on an introduction to birds. So he says, I currently hunt pheasants with a 2-year-old French Brittany. Have a second French Brittany coming in December. It's really hard to find training tips on starting your puppy. Basics to the bird introduction. I mean, we could do a whole podcast on that, but what's a good? How do you answer that? introduction to birds.
I don't know is he looking for when or how.
He's
The
just not.
when is when I have a puppy that's bold and confident in the field. If you see any apprehension or uncertainty, he's not ready.
Okay.
Whether that's 4 months or 8 months.
Right.
You want a bold, confident puppy, and that comes with lots of puppy walks.
Puppy walks and
I'm just a nut
Or he
about
feel-
walking
you
puppies
are.
in the field
With a check
and
cord on.
dragging a check cord.
listen, everybody, drag a check cord.
And I watch how that dog's response is to other non-game bird critters out there, whether it's Tweety birds, a bunny that they bounce out of a brush pile. And
You're
if
watching all that stuff.
Yeah, if they're pretty interested and get excited about that, maybe they're ready to see some game
Okay.
birds. And then if they are ready to see some game birds, first experiences, I like it to be as natural as it can. Good, strong
No
flying
launcher.
game, no launcher.
Ever
No,
on
I
'em.
don't like that. But a lot of people, because then that you got this unnatural hunk of metal there,
Right.
and then we don't want our dog to go in there, so you're holding it back. I don't like to do that. I just want a game bird to be there, and if that puppy goes
we're
after
not
it,
caring
gets
about a
up and
point
flies
or
away.
what. We're
No.
just looking for contact.
Wake up his nose.
Wake up
get
his
some-
nose.
Yep, get some excitement going and
So take it slow, lots of puppy walks, and make it natural.
make it natural.
Make it natural. Don't worry about losing a bird. Just walk him into it.
Yeah.
Don't panic if he doesn't point. Remember that one trailer I think I told you about? I think it was Gates or one of the guys. When he's run, they have the ability to keep all their dogs till they're, sometimes a year old, and different trainers will work them for a while. And I remember he said, he goes, I like the pup that takes the bird out but can see it right through the grass. Like literally, he's not afraid of that dog taking a bird out. In one bit, he knows the dog's going to point later on.
Yeah.
So that'd be, don't panic.
Yeah.
A lot of people panic when the dog doesn't point the first time. A lot of people.
Sure.
Not myself, of course. Hello, Ron. As usual, I keep enjoying the podcast. Keep up the good work. I do have a question for you now. I have a pup, almost 6 months. Doesn't say what kind. Oh, sent a picture of it. I think, is that a little LM in there? Or a small mustard lander?
Or
Got
is
your
it-
glasses on?
Well,
Or an undocked short hair?
I got this fancy headset.
Oh, yeah.
on here.
Sorry,
I
we're
feel
using
like I'm
headsets
flying
today.
a bush plane. I
Yeah,
can,
don't worry about it.
There we go.
We'll approach it. You're not going to
Is that short hair?
I can't tell. What do you think?
No,
It's got a long tail.
Oh, that's got to be a Munster line.
It's got to be a Munster. All right. Well, we had a nice little picture of it. I'm going to go Munster. All right. I got to have a pup, almost 6 months old. Training is going great, or I think so. I have read the Green Book, and we are working on woe and basic obedience. I want to incorporate a whistle with my pup, but I've never done that before. I have read it doesn't matter what sequence you use on the whistle as long as you use it consistently. I was wondering if you have used whistles for your pups, and if you have, what commands did you use for them? And what was the sequence for each command? Well, I'm not real organized, but if you don't use a whistle, could you point me in the direction of someone who knows about it? I don't plan on having the whistle as my only form of communication, but he wants to know, like, starting with a whistle, I guess. What do you do with a young dog?
Well, I teach them to turn on a whistle. That's all taught hands-on check cord work. Come when called, same thing, a whistle and verbal. And then you can teach a release, a go-ahead whistle.
Just like a little
And that
tick, tick,
covers
tick.
it, yep.
You just
Turn.
use different,
Yeah.
like a 1 for this, a 2 for that.
Here's where you got to. I use a long, drawn-out whistle for come when called, and
Like a-
one short to turn because I want it very black and white. Here's what I avoid, and I hear sometimes from people.
Morse code.
1 means this, 2 means this,
Right.
3 means this, 4 means this.
Yeah.
Okay, well, what if you do 2 and then he ignores that and you do 2 again? Was that 2 twice or was that 4? You think the waters can
Right.
get real murky there. Like you say,
Right.
Morse code all of a sudden.
Right.
So keep it very simple, the minimal number of whistle cues necessary.
Yeah.
And
So for turning a one like toot,
yep.
that's a nice.
It's kind of the standard for pointing dogs, and the standard for flushers is 2.
Okay.
And that's because
Did you
with the
see that?
flushing dogs, 1 means stop and sit down.
Okay.
That's kind of the standard.
Yeah, and I think I started that a long time ago. One
Means
one
stop.
blast was stop for whatever reason I did that. But keep it simple. Don't make Morse code out of it.
No.
But
And sometimes when I talk about whistle signals with a client, a dog owner, I can see him cringe And that's because we've all been out there with that guy who's just blaring away on that whistle, and you just want to go home when you're in the field with somebody that's like that, okay? So
I'm rolling my eyes from South Dakota and Taffy here.
yeah, it ruins a hunt to me. And it's interesting, the guys who use their whistle the most have the dogs that listen to it the least, right? That's why they keep railing away. Oftentimes, it really almost is phased out. Like when I teach that turn signal, I'm doing it for the purposes of working on range and pattern of a dog. So I'm teaching him where we want him to do his work, hunting in a forward fashion. So if I have a cast going to the back, I can bend the dog back forward. Or if he's going too far laterally to the right or left, I can turn him forward.
Yep.
And we're teaching a pattern there. Now, as you do that over time, the dogs just kind of start to work there, and you find yourself using your whistle less and less and less. The idea of teaching a whistle signal is not that for the rest of that dog's life and hunting career, we're going to walk along behind him
Right.
It's a temporary tool to teach something. And as time goes on and as training progresses, you use it less and less and less.
Right.
And all the time when I'm working a young dog, I know it's working when I go to reach for my whistle to turn him. And just as I'm bringing it up to my lips, dog turns.
So he's developed his range and his pattern.
And he's learning.
He's learning. Yeah. So I hope that answers. I can't go into all the sequences, and I think Justin made it right. It's the KISS theory. Keep it simple, stupid.
Simple as you can.
Yeah. I'll leave all the gushy comments about me on this one off. I've been. Well, I can tell you a little history about this one. This is the guy who says, have you ever done a question and answer with Justin about English setters? And I threw that up to Justin, I don't know, 4 or 5 months ago. I'd love to hear someone discuss the different lines of setters and even get someone's opinion on Llewellyn setters. And as much as Justin and I have been hanging around, he says, I don't think that's going to be an episode I want to do.
And I say that only because I'm not an expert enough on the history of the hemlock type setters, the Rymans, the Llewellyns. I've trained setters of every background.
Right.
And there are some that are as night and day different from each other. They might as well be a different breed.
Really?
You know, they're all English setters.
Right.
You know, for
they're
people
all registered English setters.
Yeah, and you know, a Llewellyn setter is a specific family line of English setters, kind of like the Elhew bred pointers are a specific family line of a pointer. Yeah. But they can be very, very different. You know, some are pretty laid back and methodical type. I always call them, you know, the old style, big bone,
the old hemlocks.
Methodical type working dog, closer
almost
working
Brocco-ish
type dog, close working type dogs. And then there's some that hunt pedal to the floor and got more speed and range to them.
Yeah. So unless I want to have a symposium of English setter breeders,
you're going to need multiple people if you want true experts. Because you asked me, can you think of anybody? I says, well, I can think of people who know about these kind of setters.
Or that
people
one.
You're going to need a panel.
So you had to pick the one breed out there that's got. I mean, all dogs have these variations.
Of course they do.
But I mean, setters are almost known for it. If you saw a family line or name, you'd almost say that's not going to be a slow working dog.
Oh, for sure.
Right? I mean, it's almost predictable.
Like most of my, all of my personal setters kind of are all from the cover dog field trial lines.
Right.
You know, the grouse and woodcock field trial lines. Those are going to be a smaller dog, hunts at a run.
Right.
And they're not going to be the close, lopey kind of dogs.
Right. But they can still do it in the grouse woods. Right?
That's what they were made to do.
Right.
Yeah, slow and lopey is not good for grouse, in my opinion.
Right.
It's great for woodcock and great for preserves, but slow and lopey is not a good thing for grouse.
You almost got to scare that bird.
Unless you're trying to hunt them like a flushing dog. No, that's what a lot of people are.
But, you know, a lot of people talk like, oh, I don't want a fast dog in the woods. And you're like saying, no, I do want a fast dog.
The faster dogs point more grouse. And my theory on that is because they come in there so fast, they don't give that grouse time to think. Boom,
Right.
and then they're standing on point. But you
Right.
got to have the goods to back that up, the nose and the brains and the point
Right.
and the bird sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that slowly approaching source of danger leads to a lot of flushed grouse.
Right.
Which is why a lot of grouse hunters want
That's
their
probably
dog
why I've
20,
shot a lot of
20
unpointed.
grouse, because your dog's 20 yards in front of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. My name is Xavier. I have an 8-month-old German Shorthair Pointer, which I want to develop into a solid bird dog. Do you have any books you might recommend? So far, we have worked on his obedience with some basics like holding and whoa. I've also worked with a dog trainer, but I really want to get more into depth in his training and have a better grasp on everything. I really appreciate any advice you might have for me. I think you've mentioned it before for some of your favorite books.
Every time we do this, we get this question because people are starving for information.
Right.
And I always default to the old tried and true Delmar Smith's book. Can't go wrong with that. After we did the last one, I had forgotten anything ever written by Dave Duffy is worth reading. If people want to look up, I think he wrote a couple books. He was a columnist for Gundog magazine for a long, long time.
Yeah.
Anything that man wrote is worth reading. That was a true, real dog man.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he had a good way with words and a real matter-of-fact way of spelling things out. And so...
another book I like, and this isn't probably so much a training book, was that Snakefoot, Making of a Champion. Just because I liked the way he wrote about his dog. It gave me insight to dogs, not insight to training.
Yeah.
It just gave me an insight to a guy who was waist deep into dog genetics and
I was
jog.
just going to say, it's about genetics more than
But
training
I think,
of times.
well, you've mentioned it before, too. Sometimes dogs just don't have the genetics. And I think reading a book like that, you'll understand the importance of genetics.
Yeah, you don't want to try and fight a losing battle.
No.
Right?
But people do.
Well, you need to understand you can only mold and shape what's there in that dog.
Yeah.
And do the best you can with that.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, they're a product of their ancestors.
Yeah.
And so you want to do the best you can with what you have to work with, but don't waste your time on something.
Right.
Yeah, put your time where it's going to be of the greatest benefit.
Yeah. And that usually comes after you're about your fourth dog and you figured out what you've done wrong over the years. Yeah. But for a person's first time, they may not know that this dog has holes in their system. They just might be beating themselves against the wall.
What am I doing wrong?
What am I doing wrong? And they just don't realize that if somebody else were to analyze that dog, and you do those things with people. You've told me, people come over and say, I need a, what do you call it, consultation? Evaluation.
Yeah.
And you've actually told people, like, I think you'd be wasting your money.
Sure.
After a good evaluation. So, anyway, I like that book just because it talks about genetics.
Well, you can always improve a dog, but when I say wasting your money, sometimes I'll say you don't need me.
Right.
I can't get this dog to do what you are wanting it to do because it just isn't there in the dog.
Doesn't mean it can't be a good hunting dog. It just
in some fashion,
good average hunting dog. Yeah. All right, Ron and Justin. I live in west central Wisconsin, near the Twin Cities. So he's over by La Crosse area. I have an 8-month-old Griffin. Thanks, Ron, for pointing me to Julie and Dave Carlstrom. There, no problem. Julie, Dave, you're welcome. A little commission check might be appropriate there. Anywho, I'm surprised he wrote that. That's why I say that a lot. Anywho, my question is when we would go hunting, he did very well, in my opinion, at pointing. However, when I would shoot the bird, when I would shoot the bird and not staunch dead-eye kill, he would go ballistic searching for the downed bird. But he would quit looking after about 3 to 5 minutes and just come to me and wait for me to walk around and help find the bird. That's kind of odd. I can't picture that. Just because I never had one yet, and you've seen the 1,512 dogs.
Yeah, well, if a dog some of them have a little more stick-to-itiveness than others, and there's a lot of dogs that if they are searching in the area of a fall and the bird isn't there anymore, okay, they're over it.
Yeah.
And other dogs will stay at it, stay at it, stay at it. It sounds like when he says, I didn't kill the bird dead, it sounds like a cripple, not a miss.
Yeah.
Right.
Sounds like it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And working cripples takes practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that is not something I've found easily recreatable in an off-season training scenario.
Right.
That will come with hunting experience, and just keep putting him in that environment, and it's going to happen.
Yeah.
If he's got the aptitude for it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I haven't found dragging dead stuff to work on trailing a live cripple at all beneficial for that task. No, they need a live cripple.
They need a live cripple.
Yeah.
And to simulate that, you can pull the flight feathers from a bird and then get them to run. We do that in the NAVDA test.
Okay.
But we also do a drag, and the drag's got nothing to do with nose. It's got nothing to do with tracking. The drag is just obedience and cooperation. So when you drag something dead for your bird, you're not teaching them anything other than you see if he's going to go eat it at the other end of the line, basically.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why it was put
8
in the
months
test.
old, I wouldn't expect him to be good at cripples.
Right. And it's funny. I didn't keep reading. He said it himself. I know he's young, but I had asked the question. I know he's young, but I wasn't sure how to help with this besides more birds. So
More hunting.
More hunting. Yeah.
More hunting.
It's just so young.
Yeah.
I mean, 8 months is a baby. Also, he only runs in a straight line from me and doesn't go more than about 25 yards with no arch in his search. So it sounds like he's kind of like a yo-yo, like straight out, straight back kind of dog without a how do I get him to range out a little more and start that arching pattern where he'd pick up more scent? It's range and pattern question, but
yeah, but if
fighting
he's putting that dog in birds, that dog should start to develop some sort of a search, which he can then modify with that turn signal, right?
Yeah,
We talked about. So that's your ability to start working on a pattern. The dog comes with an inherited hunting style.
Right.
But it's not the first couple times you take him out.
Right.
Now, what we don't know, we do know he's 8 months, so it couldn't have had that much hunting.
No.
Was it twice or 20 times? Both are possible with an 8-month-old.
Right.
Right. And but just keep running him and keep putting him in birds. It doesn't straight out and straight back is not. He has no kind of search going yet, and that tells me that he knows where these birds are, and he's walking this dog to the birds. The dog isn't finding them. Any dog that goes out 20 yards and comes straight back to you and goes out 20 yards,
kind of a milk route, isn't it?
He's not going to find birds on his own unless you know where they are.
Right.
So he's still in that stage.
Yeah. And as I said in that other answer, as long as you're thanking me for going to Julie and Dave, get over to Julie and Dave's house and work with them.
Yeah.
And get your chapter. Okay. Oh, this could be a big one. Just checking time. No, we're good. We got 35 minutes. All right, Ron. Appreciate the heart. Oh, man, that's all from my last podcast. I have I'm going to submit a question for him. I'm going to have a fair amount of background, but feel free to cut out whenever you deem necessary. I have a 4-year-old drop, Irish setter, English pointer.
Dropper.
A dropper.
Yeah,
That's
kind of an old school term.
We call them Websters.
Well, sometimes people do it on purpose. Old pointer setter crosses, right?
Yeah.
Called droppers.
Yeah. That we got as a pup from a shooting preserve. She was the run of the litter. We got her for $100 off of Craigslist. We paid for her. She has tons of drive, steady to wing, shot, and fall. Has a mediocre nose. Not sure if any of that's relevant. I mean, he wrote that. For reasons not worth getting into, she did not hunt much in her first 2 years, but I did work her on woe and other yard work with her. At 1.5, she saw her first birds when a guy I met that has his own string of dogs offered to help me with her. We got some good initial burn contacts and intro into the gun. Now to the problem. Ever since we've actually hunted together over the last 2 years, 2.5 seasons, she decides that she is going to hunt for herself and not check in with me or go with me. If she's hunting the cover over there, I want her to go this way with me. I have to call her. I have to point in the direction I want to go. Even then, she often circles back and goes right where she wants to go. I don't get the sense that she's over there because she has some scent. It's just where she wants to be. I had a dog like that, black wire hair. if I had permission to hunt on that side of the road, he'd go to the other side of the road. Anyway, it's a really long one. But I think the it sounds like he's got what people call
doesn't handle.
Dog doesn't handle, and it doesn't have enough natural cooperation to want to turn when it sees you turn or go down a ditch when it sees you go down a ditch. That's going to be an all-yard obedience training thing for him?
Check cord work again.
Check cord.
Yep, turn, and you just basically go right back like that dog was 8 months old.
Okay.
And we're going to teach him to handle. Yep, you got to turn when I tell you got to turn. You got to come to me when I tell you got to come to me. That all starts with check cord work, and then transition to collar conditioning. And he's not allowed to leave you anymore if you've done your work because you've taught him. That's not allowed.
Right.
Sounds like maybe early on the focus was on bird work and steadiness. It's a pretty high level of steadiness.
Yeah, wing shot and falls, no easy task.
Yeah, that doesn't happen in a couple weekends. So there was a lot of work done with that dog, but it seems like maybe it was geared mostly towards steadiness. And it's so much easier to get that handle on a dog when they're young and they never learn to do this. And then you have to go back, and the dog kind of learn, well, it's kind of fun, and I always tell people, if you have a super high drive, really athletic dog, heaven help you if they start finding birds 350 yards when they leave you.
Because that's where they believe every bird in the world's
at. There was a good payoff for doing that. Yeah.
And they learn by repetition and success.
And some of the dogs I train and my personal dogs come from some pretty high-powered stuff. And on my puppy walks, I'm always watching and waiting for that first. But all puppies, regardless of their breeding, are very cooperative by nature.
Yeah.
They want to know where you are. They want to know which way you're going. Yeah. And as I'm raising them, as they're coming along, I keep running them and walking them. And that first day that they blow me off and go, yeah, I know where you're going, but I don't care. I want to go the other way.
Yep.
Done free running. We're going to, right there, day one, they never learn it.
And that's all age, nothing to do with age, all to do with...
Not calendar age, just individual development,
behavior.
Where they're at. And that's the day, from then on, they start, that's where I go, okay, we're going to teach you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The rest of his question is, when he does work, he goes back in the field and goes to pot. And so, like I said, Justin has made a convert of me. I'm not saying I'm a good pupil, but I give check cord advice to more people than you give to me. Like, what a valuable tool that is.
Yeah, he can still do it.
Right.
But where people come up short is they don't fill in the middle. They do a little bit of check cord work, and everything looks good when I got my hands on the check cord, and then they go hunting.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of steps in the middle there to make that transition from yard work to hunting, to make it smooth for you and the dog. But everybody loves to go hunting. So that's more fun than training for most people.
Right. Or they squeak hunting in between training sessions, which
and you just took steps backwards.
It's just steps,
Right.
Yeah. And it's funny, he had a second page. I left some of it out. So he must listen to the podcast. Do I just need to go back to the training field with a 50-foot check cord and work going on with me over and over and over again? Or do I just accept the fact that I have a backyard bred dog that does what it wants to do? I'm going to go to this first thing. Go back to the training field, 50-foot check cord, over and over and over again.
I find a 50-footer to be real difficult to work
30 foot?
with. Yeah, at the most.
30?
Yeah. But then he's got to make that transition from there and carry that training forward into all these other situations.
So there could be a purpose for it.
And that's where the collar conditioning will come in. He can still do this.
Yeah.
But he's going to go through a period where you're going to be training that dog and not hunting.
Right.
And making that out of his training field, bringing it to these other types of cover and terrain.
And he's still going to have to watch. He's going to have to be on his toes when he first goes to hunt, too, though.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sure.
Everybody does.
You got to enforce that as you hunt.
Yeah. And I've seen you do it. I remember when we were training in the springtime with, I think, one of Brent's dogs.
Oh, yeah.
And I was like, what are you doing? Like, I'm still working around looking. The bird was already gone.
Yeah.
And you're working on the dog's overall steadiness. This dog hasn't been released yet. I'm still looking. Mm-hmm. And might even be shooting. And you're reinforcing that.
In the real world.
In the real world.
Working in the grouse woods that day. Yeah.
All right. Just started listening to podcasts. Really enjoy Q&As. 28 years old. Started bird hunting roughly 2 years ago. 95% of what I do is chucker hunting in eastern Oregon. I'm picking up my first pup in February, a GWP. At that time, he will be 6 to 7 weeks old. I've never trained a dog, so jumping into that world of information is a bit overwhelming. I will be joining NAVDA, but was wondering, is there a book or video again? So, I mean, we're back to the same thing, Delmer's book. And if you've been hunting chuckers, he didn't say he was hunting dogless, and kind of assuming
maybe he's got some friends with a dog.
Yeah.
Or some guys, of all these species, there's guys out there just kicking around.
Yeah.
Maybe without a dog. But
Yeah.
it's probably
Yeah.
just because that's what he has.
I will say when I judged in Utah, that NAVDA chapter, everyone where they were, that's all they hunted was chuckers.
Sure.
So you might very well find some really good chucker experience there that'll probably help you more than a book.
I'm sure if he's in Oregon, he doesn't have to look far to find a chucker hunter.
No.
Yeah.
No. And if you don't find one, call me, and I'll give you Phil Swain number. Probably get an email on that. Here's one for you. Quick background. Our Griff was 5 months old on the 24th. He's doing well on recall and has been on an e-collar for a month. All low stem. Blousy to reinforce the commands. Blousy. Blousy. I don't know what that word is. Blousy to reinforce. He has done great. We have worked on a blank gun, which we have when we walk and chase some birds. So far, only short blanks. Last time my girls let the dogs out, I remember this one. Last time my girls let the dog out, about 10 seconds later, the neighbor let off fireworks, not one, but it was a repeater. He took off, took 20 minutes to find him. Needless to say, he was timid all night. In the morning, he was scared of his own shadow. If the door shuts, someone drops a plate, almost anything. I remember your answer to this, and I think I might have wrote him something back, but your answer was time is your friend.
Yeah, and in theory, if he has a very normal type temperament in that dog, he's going to be absolutely fine because it was confined to in the yard, a non-field gunfire. It wasn't blank gun, wasn't a shotgun. He wasn't hunting. There were no birds.
So that's in his favor.
That's very much in his favor.
Yeah.
Situation and location, thinkers and learners. All dogs are. And so I know all kinds of dogs that you can hunt over all day long, and they don't like fireworks.
No.
They might not like vacuums. They might not
Queenie,
like
my old one I got
thunderstorms.
from Jim.
Yeah.
She stayed in that dog house for 2 days when it was 4th of July.
Sure.
Hated it.
They can't understand what's going on out there.
Right.
And so, but seeing that reaction in the dog means proceed with caution.
Right.
Now,
take your time.
Yeah, he doesn't get a ribbon if he's shooting over this dog at 7 months old. It doesn't matter.
We're not sending him an HDP ribbon.
No. And this time of year, everything is geared towards next fall.
Yeah.
So there's no
Got
rush
time.
here.
Yeah.
Build.
Yep.
It's all about confidence.
Right.
There's no age that you have to do this.
Right.
I've seen year-old dogs that aren't ready.
Yeah.
And I've seen 4-month-olds that will walk right through it and you can fire
matter.
away.
Doesn't matter.
Doesn't matter.
Yeah. Is that, to go off on a tangent, certainly, depending on dog's temperament, you could probably take any dog and make a gunshot. You could scare it to death of a gunshot. I mean, if you were purposely trying to do that.
Sure.
But the dogs that are, is there some dogs that the guys just get, they go out, they hunt, and do they just get lucky?
Oh, yeah.
Is that
Sure.
a lot more than I think? Because I remember my first few dogs, we weren't even thinking about that. We weren't thinking about introduction to birds and introduction to guns. We wanted an introduction to September 15th.
Yeah.
And I think basically got lucky,
If the dog is a real high-drive dog, bold, confident in any and all situations, a lot of people get away with it.
Yeah.
And get away with a minimal amount of introduction to the gun. But
Right.
I had a guy just this year, third dog, did the same thing he did with his first two. Kind of what you're talking about. Hey, just took him hunting, got him on some birds, shooting, make sure we hit the bird. Well, dog number 3, it bit him. He's got a gun, and the dog isn't totally ruined. He'll still hunt, and it's a flushing breed. And he'll still show interest, but when those birds get up, it just pins his ears back, and he just stands there.
Ooh.
He doesn't want to go because he was shot over before he was ready.
Scared the crap out of
So
him.
what did that dog associate it with?
The bird.
Flying birds.
Flying birds.
Flying birds. He's all about
He's all
him.
about finding
He's
them on
all
the
about
ground.
hunting for him still.
Because that noise didn't go off till
That guy was probably one hunt or two hunts away from ruining him.
right.
You know?
Yeah.
But that's fit the example there that you asked about
Yeah.
is he did the same thing he did with his first two,
Right.
and there were no problems.
This has to be a good way to do things.
Well, it worked.
Right.
He got away with it, yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm 25 years old, live in Tucson, Arizona, and hunt quail, but want to hunt other upland birds eventually. Just got my first dog. He's a GSP, now 5 months old, and is incredibly talented. Over the past month, I've taken him hunting in the field a good amount, and he's starting to locate quail and has held point to flush very often and even point to shoot to a shot a couple times. It's incredible. Difficult part is when we go to track the bird, and he gets the dead bird in his mouth. He loves playing a keep away and bites the bird hard and eats the bird sometimes. I'm not sure if this is too much concern because of his young age, though. Do I need to take steps in correcting this behavior, or would you suggest letting it play out and he'll eventually get over it? He does play keep away with stuff around the house, so I know he thinks it's kind of fun.
Yeah. He's 5 months old.
Yeah, and he's already shooting quail over.
Yeah, that's
So-
great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so he lives in Tucson. His season is almost over.
Right.
Yep. It'll end, I think, not this weekend, but next weekend.
Mm-hmm.
So, take him out a few more times, let him do whatever he's going to do, and then let him grow up. Maybe you can work on that possessiveness with retrieving dummies and a check cord. Strengthen
cord.
your strengthen
That word
your
keeps
come
coming
when
up.
called. So, well, that's your handle. You got something you can get a hold
know.
of, And then the being hard on a bird, chomping on them, puppy hard mouth. We've talked about that. Sometimes those puppies, the first time they get those, they turn into a little coyote on you. They're just ramped way up. Unless there's a genetic hard mouth issue present,
Right.
almost always that goes away as they grow up a little bit and get more and more and more birds shot over them. But that should come over time. He shouldn't run right out after the Arizona quail season closes and go buy some quail and try and fix this. Just
Right,
wait.
right,
Just hold
right,
on.
just wait.
Yeah, and keep your retrieving stuff with dummies. And then he'll know probably partway through next season whether or not he's going to need to intervene in the being hard, the hard
chomping
mouth,
or eating a
chomping or
bird.
eating. He'll know
Yeah.
that partway through
But
next
at 5
season.
months old, that's not.
Nope, see what happens.
Was there any value? No, I was kind of already contradicting what you said. So no.
Well,
I'm
no,
not
what
even-
was the question?
The question
I'm
was, well, and I think because I've heard people say like, well, what if I were to in the training season just deal with pheasants? Would he still be as hard? Is a quail so tempting that it's so little in their
Small.
mouth?
Yeah.
Is that a little
It's
bit
easier to chew up a quail than a pheasant, especially if you're a puppy.
right?
Yeah.
But you're not. We're not saying it's just still let this thing play out and evaluate it.
As
Yeah.
the dog gets
Right.
deeper in experience and older, so off season, between now and then, I think is what
Yeah.
he's, strength and come when called, strength and come when called. And then the other thing I would do is just to get the wheel turning. This is going to have nothing to do with birds, but I'm always looking for, okay, if I get to that point next year, and now I realize I am going to have to do something, I don't like to be at square one. I want to start the backup plan. And so I would start getting that dog comfortable up on a training table this coming spring and summer, and maybe do just a little light duty hold
command,
with
hold and out.
No birds at all.
No.
Just whatever kind of dummy the dog is most accepting of,
Yep.
Whether it's a canvas dummy or whatever. He can play around with that. But all fun, no
Right.
pressure, but start a little bit of that so that if we get down the road and we realize we're going to have to do something, we're not.
You've already had some basic foundation of table and putting things in his mouth, taking things out of his mouth.
Yep.
Yeah.
You get
Good
a little
idea.
little bit of the plan B started just in case you
Right.
need it. It's there.
And that's good, solid work to do in the
Anyways,
off season anyway.
it's going to be
Yeah.
beneficial regardless.
Right. And he'll eventually understand when he quits doing that, he'll understand the word out.
Sure.
Right? I mean, a lot of dogs don't know out.
Yeah.
It gets ripped out of their mouth. All right, now the one for so I had a question I'll answer later on the gets a little too deep in the weeds on the NA test. But and now one for Justin next time he's on the show. My dog loves to pattern her search heavy to my right side. She will go yards left of me and 30 yards to the right. Any advance on balancing out her patterning? Seems like she wants to always be on his right side. Very little left from what he's saying.
Could be an individual quirk. The only thing I can think of there is instead of walking a straight line, as that dog is coming across right to left, I'm going to maybe bend 45 degrees and walk that way with him. And
actually
then
put him on your other
kind
side.
of turn with him and try and stretch him out further
So
that
like
way.
like a serpentining type of walk.
And he's going to need to teach that turn signal because when that dog goes to bend back, turn him and keep walking him further to his left.
Yeah.
That's an odd one. It could be just an individual quirk. This dog has passed away now, and I didn't own her, but a friend of mine had a fantastic English pointer. I mean, a great dog. And Dory was her name. And I don't think I ever saw that dog turn. Let me think to my memory. I never saw her make a right-hand turn. She always turned to her left. So
she should have been in NASCAR.
So a cast to her right when she would make her turn would bring her forward. A cast to my left as I'm walking would turn her back towards me. And then she'd come back across, and it was almost like an oval out in front of you.
Wow.
She just didn't.
So you're always seeing like a counterclockwise pattern to
she's
it.
left-handed. That dog always turned left. And every now and then you could get her to do it, or if she just kind of, through experience of her hunting experience, kind of teed into some cover, and there was absolutely nothing left, she would maybe go, but left to her own.
But as soon as she could, she's back to left.
That was in the genes with that dog.
Yeah. Nothing you.
And you know what? So some of these people like dissect all that stuff. It didn't stop her from being a phenomenal bird dog. That's just how she did it.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the great ones can do it a little funky sometimes and still get it done.
Yeah.
So.
All right, I have a 1-year-old Brittany living on the coast of Maine. He's my first dog, and we just completed our first season. Overall, I'm happy with how the season went. I was able to shoot a handful of woodcock, a pen-raised pheasant, and even one grouse over his points. He will even retrieve birds, but is reluctant to bring them right to your hand. He's pretty well disciplined, comes when I call, pretty well good at staying in whoa and collar condition. My one issue I had with him is he does not range very far in the thick grouse woods. Typically, he stays within 35 yards or so, I would say. Checks in more than he needs to. He does start to range out a bit more when we start getting into more bird contacts. Ideally, I think I'd prefer him to range to 50 to 70 yards. He's on a GSP global
GPS.
position, GPS, yeah, GPS collar. So when I hunt, I largely give him free rein. I typically don't do a lot of recall unless I need to, such as getting him when it comes close to a road. Is there anything I can do to get him to range out farther? Is just this a puppy thing, where his worried dad is going to do something fun without him? Definitely a fear of his. I can expect with age and experience he'll start venturing out further?
Yes, that's a fair thing to expect.
Okay.
As a dog accumulates more hunting experience and his confidence in his work, and it could be, it's, again, going back to no calendar age, a lot of 4-month, 5-month-olds, they want to know where you are.
Right.
Well, that same thing could be for a year and a half old dog as he becomes more confident in grouse woods, right? Thick cover. And all he can do is continue to hunt that dog. And as he matures and gets more experience, he should also gain more confidence and begin to venture out a little bit further, especially if the cover comes down.
Right.
Another season will really tell the tale. He could be a dog that's just his natural range.
Right.
And if that's the case, if that proves to be the case over time, there's no mechanical way to train him to range further, really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just
That's
that.
what it is.
Yep. Let me see that one. HB. Okay. I live and hunt grouse and pheasant in northeast Wisconsin. In recent years, the wolf population has grown continuously in my favorite covers. I have lived and worked in Arrowhead of Minnesota Upper Peninsula and have seen their ability to adapt and thrive in many areas. Question I have is, what preparations or precautions do hunters do when hunting in wolf territory? Well,
here in Michigan's Upper Peninsula, it should be on your radar when you go up there with your dogs.
Do you run a bell or anything extra, or are you afraid that could call them in at some point?
No, I always have a bell. I kind of don't use the beepers anymore, but there are people in the UP that wouldn't turn a dog loose without a beeper.
Right.
And their theory is that just shies those wolves up just enough. Now, doesn't he have a pretty close working dog? I think that's the biggest factor.
Okay. For instance, Bayfield, my Lab Maya in County Forest.
Lab.
There
you go.
Yeah. Which has one of the highest densities. I often carry my 40 caliber Beretta. That gives me peace of mind that 14 in a clip is better than 2 in my over-under. I have had encounters with them during deer season, and things are always tense, but always well with them getting skittish and moving away. I will admit they're beautiful animals, but my concern is when you introduce your foreign canine, your hunting dog, into the mix. Is there going to be a display of dominance? Although I hunt with close-working labs, can't imagine the anxiety of long-range pointers owners hunting in the grouse woods. Well,
Michigan's Upper Peninsula, and the same would hold true for Wisconsin and Minnesota in places. It's not a place you want to lose your dog overnight. And the houndsmen are really the most vulnerable.
Because their dogs are sometimes miles from them.
They detach from their humans. That's their
by
job.
design.
That's what they do.
Right.
That's their job.
Yep.
And I think the baying, when they're running those wolves, is really almost calling
the wolves
that's
in.
the kiss of death for them.
Yeah.
They're territorial. The wolves are. There's other canines in our turf.
Right.
Boy, with a lab, I would say he's in the safest dog owner category there is to go
Flushing
out and
dog
hunt.
range.
And, they're right there with you.
Right.
And your dog at any moment should be able to be called in. It sounds like this guy is pretty heavily armed. So if he ran into that real fluky, sketchy
and if the
wolf,
dog's really good, he's been gun broke or take a shot once in a while at the trees.
I've heard of some fluky deals. I had one kind of weird encounter with a wolf one time, and I found my dog bolted, and we found him back at my truck underneath it.
Right.
And I know that was wolves. I know that dog inside and out, and he made it back to the truck.
Before the wolf could get him.
But that was, and I don't know that the wolves followed him. I just know he spooked out of his mind, and it was wolves, and we saw wolf tracks and the whole deal.
So it's something to be concerned, but I don't know.
With a lab, I wouldn't let it faze me one bit.
Yeah,
if you're a pointing dog owner in wolf country, I think there's some merit to sticking with the beeper collars. And, just why not play it safe?
Because it sounds more like an automobile. It doesn't. To me, a bell could almost be the dinner bell. But for me, a beeper collar is such an annoying noise to me. I can't imagine a wolf would like it.
I've heard of houndsmen starting to put beepers on their dogs.
Really?
Yeah, they don't need them for our pointing dog guy purposes, but
heck
just
with
thinking,
I'd do it. All right, last one. This very, very exact here. We got a small Munsterlander, 17 months of age. Level of training is come when called, strong. Sit, stay, and heel, strong. Whoa, low to intermediate. Pointing, retrieving, waterfowl, no formal, just natural ability, keeping it fun right now. Game hunted, pheasants and grouse. Gun and collar conditioned. About 30 birds shot around this dog where I live in Minnesota. So he's done a fair amount of stuff. 17-month, year-and-a-half-old dog. Question is, I made my pup's first trip to South Dakota this year to expose him to hunting experience as much as possible. Prior to the trip, he showed excellent drive, natural ability at finding birds, even a few weak points, but had not put it together, and lacked purpose in what to do, etc. On the fourth day of the trip, the lights came on, showed prowess in tracking spry wounded birds. He would pin them down once caught, no retrieves yet, and started pointing birds, mostly non-running hens. That's what happens.
That's great.
That's what they do.
Yeah.
Because hens are cooperative birds, and
They run like banshees too.
well, but more often they're going to sit more than a rooster will.
Usually, a lot of it's cover dependent, but that's all a great sign.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. After seeing all this, it's obvious that hunting exposure is huge in bringing him along. My now is, I would like to develop his pointing, steadiness, and retrieving without force fetching in the approaching off season. He is very keen on what is the real deal and when we're at a game farm or training setup scenarios. Any tactics in your experience, how to develop those skills? Are they small tricks like scratch hunting versus planted birds, wearing rubber gloves when planting birds, or are there large conceptual drills that need to be applied here? I got to go back to this. He would like to develop his pointing. Pointing is a natural instinct.
And he is on his
he's
way
seen
to
it.
doing
He's
that.
seen
the
that.
dog's pointed some hens.
So,
Yep.
and people should know this. And I've heard people say, like, I'm working on teaching my dog to point. You're working around something, but pointing is natural, if the genetics are right.
100%.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Steadiness, on the other hand, is obedience.
Correct. That's true.
So he wants to develop his pointing, which, like you said, he probably doesn't need to worry about. Steadiness and retrieving, two different things. Steadiness. Check cord come into play?
No, he needs to teach whoa and separately from birds.
Yeah.
We've gone over all this, in prior podcasts, so he can go back and look those up and listen to them. We're not going to get into the mechanics of steadiness,
Right.
but that's going to be taught based on his whoa foundation. The retrieving, he doesn't want to force train the dog, so he's going to nurture the natural retrieve that dog has. Mm-hmm. He mentioned scratch hunting versus planted bird hunting. There is a benefit to that, very much so, and it's something that a lot of people don't think of. So when he goes out and plants birds, he, whether it's conscious or not, is going to direct his dog to those birds because he knows where they are.
Right.
And if he goes through there and the dog doesn't find him, what's he going to do? He's going to stop, and he's going to call that dog back.
Over here.
Yeah, over here, right? And because, he spent whatever bucks for that bird.
There's
$10
$10 bills sitting over here.
Yeah, come over here and point it. Repeatedly handling a young pointing dog like that can make a young pointing dog over-reliant on their handler. You don't have to – these dogs are so smart, and they figure that out.
Yeah.
All right, just kind of pay attention to him, and then he'll – point me towards where there's a bird. And that dog is not learning to become a good bird finder. If he's going to scratch birds, for anyone who doesn't know, that's a shooting preserve industry term for, hey, just go run your dog and see what you can find.
There's probably some birds out there.
Yeah, and if you shoot one or two, that's what you owe us for.
Right, yeah.
And so in that environment, he doesn't know where they are.
Right.
And he's just going to be like he was hunting. So that would be better for developing a real bird finding thing.
Yeah.
It's something about wearing rubber gloves when you handle birds.
Yeah.
So, I have planted, I don't know how many thousands and thousands of birds
How about
in my life.
Tens and tens of thousands.
Yes.
Yeah.
With gloves and without gloves. I haven't seen any difference in the dogs in what they do. Now, do you think a pair of gloves that you wear does not smell like you? You are seriously underestimating these dogs' noses.
Right.
Maybe slightly less strong, but plenty strong enough for a dog to know that bird has been handled by a human being.
Right.
I've lost gloves before in the field, and dog will point them. Why? Well, he kind of is a human scent, bird scent connection if he's in that window, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think the rubber gloves thing is any big shakes. When we're working these dogs with planet game in the off season, they know it. They know it's a setup, and they know we set it up, and it serves its purpose,
Right.
But
Well, I'll tell you what, if he's worried about that, he can have somebody else go plant the birds. Just being sarcastic.
they smell like a human too,
I know, but they don't smell like him.
Yeah, and so I'm not sure what he thought would be beneficial or
Right.
problematic.
I've seen it in a lot of the tests. I've seen some chapters wear the gloves because some handler.
On certain tests, it's in the rules.
Oh, is it?
Well,
Yeah,
I don't
think
know
it's
anything
in
about
ours.
NAVDA, but yeah.
I don't think it's in our rules, but a lot of chapters just do it. They do it for consistency. So somebody doesn't say
Right.
you didn't have gloves on.
Sure, yeah, you got to.
Because that thinks that's why my dog didn't point, because he smelled your hand on it. But like you said, the minute you've handled birds and handled your gloves and taken them on and off, that's just another scent that
We literally are shedding human scent everywhere we go
Right,
with everything we do, and these dogs know it. And the only time you'll see a dog something funky with a bird that's handled by a human, but if he happens to find that pheasant in South Dakota and he looks like $1 million and does it right, that means a person messed him up on a planted bird.
Yeah.
And he's got a sour spot for anything that reeks of a setup, a
Right.
human setup.
Yeah.
Well, that's not the fault of gloves or no gloves. That's the fault of a person.
Right.
He made it that negative
just
association.
happened to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it. Justin, we could go on for another 2 hours,
Well,
but
maybe we'll circle back around. We got a few stories from the road to share.
yeah, we could do that. We got some stuff you got to help me with some dogs. I got to come over here and feed your dogs a couple days this next month or two, and we'll just turn the recorder on. If I get a few more questions that filter in, I'll bring them,
That'd be perfect.
and then we could tell some hunting stories.
I got a couple. Your prairie chicken adventures.
Yeah. Stay tuned for the adventures of the prairie chicken. Bye, everybody. Love you.